For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Tropical storm Idalia is barreling through the Carolinas on its way to the Atlantic Ocean after leaving a trail of flooding and devastation throughout the southeast. It caused record flooding in Charleston, South Carolina, and tornadoes, and caused record flooding in Florida. Deanna Criswell is director of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Idalia is the strongest storm to hit this part of Florida, to make landfall in this part of Florida in over 100 years.
Idalia weakened to a tropical storm, but still contained 60-mile-per-hour winds as it reaches coastal North Carolina. It's forecast to hit the Atlantic Ocean later today. This year's climate chaos has depleted the nation's emergency relief funds. President Joe Biden Wednesday pledged $95 million from the bipartisan infrastructure law to aid Hawaii's recovery from the nation's deadliest wildfires in more than a century, and asked Congress to replenish dwindling disaster aid amidst an era of climate change. Christopher Martinez reports.
I don't think anybody can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore. Just look around. Historic floods, more intense droughts, extreme heat, significant wildfires.
From the disaster on the Atlantic coast, Biden turned to another crisis response on the Pacific side of the nation. In Hawaii, Biden is also sending aid from the bipartisan infrastructure law.
$95 million.
The new aid will fund things like strengthening Hawaii's electric transmission lines, including 2 lines in Maui, as well as replacing wooden poles with fire-resistant materials and deploying intelligent switches to reduce wildfire risk. Meanwhile, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, has quietly begun limiting how its funds can be spent. That's because of a shortfall in the disaster fund. Biden has asked Congress for $12 billion to replenish the fund.
How can we not respond? My God.
There is a lot of need to go around. There have been 65 federal disasters or emergencies in the last 5 months, including 9 in the last week, with another 11 requests from governors pending. FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell says this is our new normal. I'm Christopher Martinez.
Progressive groups are pushing to remove Donald Trump's name from the 2024 ballot, arguing a rarely used provision of the 14th Amendment called the Insurrectionist Disqualification Clause bars from public office those who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, then engaged in an insurrection against it. The group's Free Speech for People and Mi Familia Vota Education Fund issued letters Wednesday to secretaries of state and chief election officials in 5 states, urging them to abide by the U.S. Constitution and remove Trump from their ballots in Florida, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Earlier this year, they sent similar letters to 10 other states, including California, Colorado, Georgia, Nevada, Michigan, New York, and Pennsylvania, as part of the Trump is Disqualified campaign the organizations launched late last year. Meanwhile, a lawsuit was filed in New Hampshire to disqualify Trump from the 2024 ballot. Catherine Carley reports.
A newly filed lawsuit aims to keep former President Donald Trump off the 2024 ballot in New Hampshire due to his involvement with the January 6th insurrection. Meanwhile, conservative talk show host Charlie Kirk says his listeners have inundated the New Hampshire Secretary of State's office with phone calls to ensure Trump is included.
And I'm trying to find the pressure points. We are trying to find the pressure points of where they're going to try to pull a fast one against the United States Constitution.
Both the New Hampshire Secretary of State and Attorney General have said any implication that either office is attempting to remove Trump's name is misinformation, and the state is carefully reviewing the legal issues involved. I'm Catherine Carley for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
Canada has updated its travel advisory for the United States, warning LGBTQ Canadian travelers they're at risk of being affected by state and local laws. This comes amidst a recent surge in state-level legislation targeting the LGBTQ community. Though no specific state law or policy was mentioned in the Canada advisory, a spokesperson for Global Affairs Canada, a government agency, pointed to recently passed state laws banning drag shows and restricting the transgender community from accessing gender-affirming care and from participating in sporting events. According to the ACLU, nearly 500 anti-trans bills were introduced in U.S. state houses this year. So far, 83 of them have passed. The Biden administration has proposed a new rule Wednesday that would make millions more workers eligible for overtime pay. Catherine Carley reports.
A new rule by the Biden administration could extend overtime pay to more than 3 million additional salaried workers. Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su says the proposal stems from discussions with employers, workers, and unions nationwide.
To workers who are organizing for power and respect in the workplace, know that we see you, we stand with you, and we will fight for you.
Overtime pay would be extended to workers with salaries of roughly $55,000 a year, greatly impacting those in retail, food, and hospitality managerial positions. I'm Catherine Carley for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
I'm Christina Onestad reporting for Pacifica Radio.